The following program is provided to you in part by RE/MAX Signature Properties, Embroidery Unlimited,
The magazine goes green with landscaping hints, composting, plus growing your own food in your own garden. The magazine starts now. Hello and welcome to this green edition of the magazine. I'm Dan Ginden. We've hit the perfect time of year to start landscaping your own backyard. Kristen Doucette talked to a couple of experts in the Metro West area to see what steps you need to take to have the best looking yard in your neighborhood.
In New England, winters seem to last forever. In early February, we are begging for an early spring. We just can't wait to see the trees pop and lawns green up. But then, when that time comes,
we realize how much there is to do. Leaves to rake, gardens to mulch, and grass to grow. It can really seem overwhelming at first.
Since mulching shouldn't be done too early in the spring, the first thing you want to tackle is the lawn. You should rake out the grass very early. Experts say you should use a metal tine rake over one with plastic tines. They do a better job of getting into the topsoil.
You need to get the old thatch out to promote root growth and allow oxygen and water to get into the roots. And then you apply some spring fertilizer with some crabgrass control down, and your lawn's off and going.
Eric Kalenbeck is the owner of ESD Associates. They specialize in design and construction. But with 17 years of experience in all facets of landscaping, ESD Associates seemed like a perfect company to talk to. Once you get the fertilizer down, watering should be your next priority. ESD Associates suggests watering in the morning.
And if you water in the morning, it gives the grass enough nutrients and water for the day, and you can usually, withhold it.
Watering in the afternoon doesn't do you any good because the water will evaporate before it gets a chance to really sink into the soil. Watering at night will likely promote the growth of funguses that can do some damage during the summer months.
If you have a lawn that's very thin, you want to consider seeding as well.
The seeding's tough in the spring because if you put crabgrass control down, you can't seed because it'll prevent the seed from coming up unless you use a special product. The best time usually is in the fall. We try to recommend people to do it in the fall, but there's circumstances where it's very hard to. You obviously don't have a lawn and you need to get some grass in. Then you'd use the special product that will allow you to seed with crabgrass control.
You want to not only rake out your garden areas, but prune them as well. For that info, we went to ESD Associates Project Manager, Steve Detweiler.
We prune to maintain the health of the plant, the integrity, shape, and longevity. And the best times to prune, we do a little bit of selective pruning in the spring. As far as the next best time is usually in July, August, when everything's gone through its phase of growing.
Now that you have everything cleaned up, you still aren't done. You're going to want to fill those empty garden spaces with plants and flowers.
For that part of the process, we went to the Sterling Greenery Garden Center and talked to the owner, Mark Packard. He filled us in on what types of plants you'll want to use.
The gardeners prefer perennials, so it's also a better use of your money. So you're going to plant that perennial, it's going to come up every year, it's going to grow every year. Sometimes you can even split them into two perennials. So if you want to start small, start with perennials. Shrubs are really important for a backdrop, especially in the winter. If you need structure, you want to go with more of the shrubs. Perennials will come up every year. And then just use the annuals for accent. It'll be long-lasting color. It'll be really bright and really vibrant throughout the whole season. You can use those annuals just for a splash of color, but perennials and shrubs are going to be your repetitive and mainstays of the garden.
After deciding on what to plant, you need to get the proper tools out of your shed or garage.
You need your basic pitchfork, your shovel. The easiest thing would be to rent a rototiller if you don't have one yourself. That's the easiest way to loosen up the soil, because soil compaction is actually our biggest enemy when it comes to planting new gardens, because the water can't get into the soil. So you really want to loosen that up either with a pitchfork or a rototiller, or even taking a shovel and just turning over that soil really good.
Make sure you notice the garden's surroundings. If you have a lot of pine trees, that means you have an acidic soil. You'll want to add some lime to your garden area to create a neutral soil. Also, you need to make sure you give your plants the proper amount of water.
More plants will die over the heat of the summer than they will die over the winter. So they say that early spring and fall is the best time to plant. So you want to get those plants in at the right time. That's the biggest mistake people do. You don't want to plant in mid-August when it's really hot, because you'll have to water it a lot. The other thing is more plants will die from overwatering than underwatering. So if you plant a plant too low and all that water pools around it, plants don't have the opportunity to stand on their toes like we do. So you want to make sure that that plant is a little bit above the soil, and make sure it gets a way to shed the water away from it.
Knowing the amount of light your garden gets is also extremely important when it comes to knowing what plants fit best. 4 hours a day or less equals shade, while 4 to 6 hours is partial sun, and 6 hours or more is full sun.
So it may have been a ton of work, but now you have a well-landscaped yard that you can enjoy for the entire summer season. For the magazine, I'm Kristen Doucette.
It's nice to see Kristen enjoying the outdoors while most of us are stuck inside of a dark studio. Still to come on the magazine, growing your own vegetable garden, how easy and cost-effective it can be.
Hi, I'm firefighter Mark. I just got back that could have been prevented. Here's an easy and simple way to protect you and your family from a fire. Change your batteries in your smoke detector. Placing the batteries in your smoke detector, make sure that you have fresh batteries. When testing your smoke detector, you push the test button. And don't forget about carbon monoxide in your home. There are 2 types of detectors to protect yourself from carbon monoxide. This one is battery operated and needs to be mounted on your wall. This one needs to be plugged into your wall outlet. So remember, be smart, be aware, be fire safe.
Welcome back to our green edition of the magazine. I'm Dan Ginden. Growing your own vegetable garden is not only a great hobby to have, but it's cost-effective as well. Here's Kelly McLaughlin with more.
Growing your own food is hard work. However, in this time of economic hardships, it may be a good way for your home to save some money. Longtime Marlboro residents Blair and Janet Osborne have been working on their garden each season and is preparing for another great crop.
It's a lot of work, it really is, but it is worth it 10 times over. It really is. Think of what you pay for a package of seeds and the stuff you get. It's just wonderful.
The first things we plant are the spinach, the radishes, and carrots. We plant those together so that the radishes can mark where the carrots are, because the carrots come up as a very fine thread to start with, and then it blossoms up from there. And the peas. Those are my early spring crops. The asparagus is planted in the bed. The beds that I have were planted over 40 years ago. They're supposed to last for 20 years, but I've been fortunate that they just keep going. The asparagus, of course, comes along whenever it wants to come along. And that's the first thing we harvest. I've gardened for so long here that the soil, after a period of time, does get depleted, even though it gets composted. I cover the asparagus for the winter with about 6 inches of leaves, maybe 8 inches of leaves. The first thing I do in the spring is rake the leaves off of the asparagus. And I rake them into a trench and bury them so that they can compost in place.
If you think you're ready to start growing your own food, here are some things to consider. Climate. We New Englanders know that we can always expect unpredictable weather. There are many types of food you can grow during the right season and weather.
The warmer weather plants, I start planting around Memorial Day, and that would be transplanting the tomatoes and the peppers, the Italian parsley. I'll plant the squash. We grow summer squash. This year we're going to grow zucchini squash and butternut squash. After that, we'll plant the corn and the beans. The peppers do very well in a hot growing season. Peas, we hope to harvest before the 4th of July. The tomatoes, we hope to harvest by mid-August.
Space. Start small. Begin growing foods that you love. That will make it more like fun and less like work. Make sure you have enough space for what you want to grow and plan out where you're going to plant each type. Soil and sunlight. You want to make sure you have a designated area for your garden that gets optimal sunlight for the foods you will be growing. Then make sure you have plenty of soil and compost laid down for that area. Here's a tip. Plant your vegetables in a different area of the garden than you did in the previous season. This is because the plants have already stripped that area of the nutrients it needs most, but will allow other plants to grow there and give it time to regenerate more of those nutrients.
Start small and then grow as you're able to.
Every year we have a different location for items. Last year, the tomatoes were planted where the peas are planted this year. Where the tomatoes are going this year, last year we had beans. Where the squash is going, last year we had corn. So every year we try and rotate something different into that area to prevent the earth-borne diseases that are associated with the plant from contaminating new plantings.
Also, it's a good idea to put up some sort of fence to keep unwanted critters from stealing your food before you get a chance to enjoy it yourself.
Initially we had woodchucks and rabbits, and I put in the 2x4 fence to keep them out. But then I noticed that the rabbits just can go right through the opening in the 2x4 fence like it wasn't even there. So I have gotten chicken wire around the garden to keep out the rabbits.
Rainfall and watering. You will need a lot of water throughout the grow season for all those vegetables. The best way not to put a strain on your wallet while watering your plants is to use rain buckets to collect water.
I water as often as the plants need to be watered, but I use drip watering or soaker hoses on the row plants like the peas, the beans, the corn. I'll string soaker hoses in those rows. And the individual plants like the peppers, the tomatoes, the squash, I'll put a little drip watering system in. A lot of our water that we use, as I mentioned before, comes from the rain barrels, which we have on the back of the house. Now last year that was very helpful. I don't think we watered more than 3 or 4 times last year, and with water from a tap. The rest of the time when water was necessary, we used the water out of the rain barrels.
Now you have to be patient. The grow season is more than just planting seeds and waiting for the harvest. Your garden will need daily attention and watering. Many people start their seeds indoors, so they have a head start when it's time for them to be planted. You can also begin growing in a large or small greenhouse. This small greenhouse was built to house the start of the Osborne's pepper and multiple types of tomato plants. The greenhouse keeps the internal temperature above average by capturing the sunlight and allowing the plants to grow at a faster rate than if you had just planted them in the ground outside. To start growing, you need to break the ground, lay off rows, plant your seeds, cultivate and tend to, watch for insects and animals, harvest, and preserve. We recommend not using any pesticides or chemicals in your garden unless it is absolutely necessary.
I try not to use any pesticides, and I'm generally very successful, but occasionally we get infested with the Mexican bean beetle, and they'll decimate the beans. So I do use 7, but I'm very careful to use it.
We love to grow our own food because we know that there's no poison on it. On a very, very rare occasion, we have to use something, but we know what's been put on it and when it was put on. So you know when it's safe to eat and what you have to do to prepare it, if anything.
If you have a small crop, you're most likely going to eat it before you need to preserve any of it. However, if you have a larger harvest, you want to think of the best way to preserve it to last until you are ready to enjoy. The most common ways of preserving homegrown foods are drying, canning, and freezing. Believe it or not, Janet and Blair grow enough vegetables to last them the entire winter.
We'll freeze the peas in 14-ounce containers, and that's a serving for the 2 of us. And we'll freeze up, maybe 30 to 40 containers.
The food tastes delicious. It's better than stuff from the store. It really is. You can get it so fresh. For example, I raised some raspberries and blueberries. And if you go out and pick your raspberries and take them in and make raspberry jam, you will get the best tasting raspberry jam you could possibly get. You can't get that from commercial.
I would say to anybody that wants to start a garden, start with a vegetable or fruit that you enjoy, and devote yourself to that initially. And if you're successful in it, you can expand out into wherever you want to go.
Those are the joys of gardening.
And besides that, it tastes good.
Whether you're growing 5 or 15 different types of food in your garden, each item is one less that you will need to buy at the grocery store. For the magazine, I'm Kelly McLaughlin.
Still to come on this green issue of the magazine, composting at home.
Hello, I'm Paul Miner, Executive Director of Massachusetts 211. 211 is a non-emergency information hotline that provides callers with the information they need to solve many of life's everyday and sometimes critical problems. Whether it's finding government benefits or services, nonprofit organizations, support groups, crisis response, and official information, Mass 211 can help. This free and confidential service is provided to you by your local United Way. So remember, when you need non-emergency help, call 211.
Finally, in this issue, we take a look at composting at home. Who better to bring you this story than our own official composter at WMCT-TV, Carl Wilhelm.
If you have a backyard, you have a reason to compost. Here in Marlborough, Jen Boudry is no stranger to the art of composting.
To make a compost pile, set aside some space in your yard where you can have one. And you can put a fence around it, or you can just pile things up, either one. In our garden, we have 3 pallets stuck together in the corners. We just put leaves inside and things from the kitchen. I usually take my compost stuff from the kitchen out to the garden every few days and just leave it there, and I'll usually put some leaves on top. And if I'm ambitious, I'll turn it every few months and let it compost, but it's a really, really simple thing to do.
You know, next year, all of this stuff will be as good as this compost underneath.
Composting is not only a simple way to dispose of your waste, but in many towns, it's a cost-effective method as well.
Yeah, if you live in a town or city where you have to pay as you throw, that means you have to pay for all the garbage you throw out. And in that case, composting can save you a lot of money because, you know, vegetables and fruit clippings, or vegetable and fruit from the kitchen, leaves and things like that from the yard really add up over time. It's one of the heaviest parts of your trash. So if you can take that out, you can save a lot of money.
Now, not everything you dispose of or use on a daily basis is compostable. However, there are new innovative technologies being developed that could further reduce the size of your trash bin.
You can buy cups and utensils and dishes that are disposable, made of like cornstarch and sugarcane fibers and so on. So those things are compostable. So you could actually have a compostable meal, you know, in some way. So if you're having a party, you can buy compostable dishware and take all the food waste and your utensils and compost it.
For Marlboro resident Jen Boudry, there are specific items she leaves out of her compost to ensure that she has a healthy mix.
I don't put any meat or dairy in there. I just put fruits and vegetable stuff. I also have leaves from the yard every fall and grass clippings from the summertime. So that is a really healthy mix actually for the compost pile.
Another style of a do-it-yourself compost pile is one that, well, the kids may enjoy, called vermicomposting. Well, you can figure out what that most likely means, but let a fellow Marlboro resident take you through the world of a worm compost.
Okay, this is just a standard storage box that you can buy at any of the stores, Target, Walmart, or whatever. And what I have done, I purchased some not filters, they're vents, Suffolk vents. And I just put some cloth over it so that the bugs, the little fruit flies don't go in and out of it. And drilled a hole, a couple of holes in here, press them in. And this part here has a one inch screens on the bottom side. And on the bottom of connecting between the two sides, the front and the back, is actually a piece of PVC 1-inch piping. And it has a whole series of holes going through the pipe to allow for ventilation. And we start off by putting just a bedding of newspapers on the bottom of the crate, and we purchase some worms. They can be commercially sold. They're red worms. Use your orange peels, banana peels, cucumber peeling, and most any kind of garbage or vegetables that you get from normal use. And you put them into the box and you shred newspaper and put the newspaper over the garbage as you're using it. This has been in here for quite a while, and there's some of the red worms there. The worms work along with the micro organs of other insects. And if you get in there tight, you can see that they're really munching away. After the worms do their job for a month or two, what we do is harvest the castings from it.
The castings is the combination of the worm's waste and your food waste, which creates the rich, dark fertilizer.
We have fun doing it. Gets rid of the garbage. We don't have to throw garbage into the trash all the time. In fact, all of our garbage goes into here.
Now, if you don't think you have what it takes to make your own compost, you can always head down to your local lawn and garden shop where you can purchase a variety of composts.
There are plenty of different composts that you can buy at the store. You know, they come in plastic bags, and they have shellfish or other stuff in there that nourishes the soil. So it's good to get compost to mix into your soil for your gardens. It's going to make better, vegetables and fruits and flowers and so on.
From the kitchen to the backyard, it's almost easier to make your own compost than go purchase it from the store.
You have to drive to the store, you have to pick up the bags, you have to bring it home, you have to dispose of the bags and so on. If you make your own compost, it's just free and easy.
Free and easy, down the road we went into the world of composting. For the magazine, I'm Carl Wilhelm.
That's going to do it for this green issue of the magazine. Next month, we'll be bringing you a behind-the-scenes look at the annual budget process in the city of Marlboro. For all of us here at WMCT-TV, I'm Dan Ginden. Thanks for watching.
The preceding program was provided to you in part by RE/MAX Signature Properties. Embroidery Unlimited.